What the hell is this thing? It's a 2015 Ram 3500 SLT. It's obviously the flatbed, which is the equivalent of a long bed configuration, and it's on 37-inch tires. It looks really aggressive. It has a lot of blue accents, not only in the flames, which blue runs hotter than yellow and red, but also in all the stabilization fab tech goodies that it has as well. And if you want to buy it, you can buy it at Twin Falls Subaru. Otherwise, today's video is not my typical objective review with all the specs and stats. We are still going to have a 0 to 60 so that you can find out just how fast this behemoth really is. But this is more of a subjective review of my experience driving the biggest truck that I've ever driven. Just for reference, the top of my head is a few inches lower than the mirror, and I'm 5'11", which is at least average height. So this is a much more than average sized truck. To be honest with you guys, I've already driven it around to do my initial driving impressions and the 0 to 60 on it because I was really curious to see what it could do. This has been on the lot for at least a week or two, so I figured it hasn't been sold yet. It's destined that I come to town, that I borrow it and see what I think of it so I can share it with you guys. It's only about $40,000 and it only has about 90,000 miles, which I feel like in today's truck market is honestly almost a pretty decent deal for a bone stock Cummins. But this has quite a few upgrades, mostly exterior and suspension oriented, because inside it only has a tuner and what looks like an aftermarket air intake. As far as I can tell, the turbo is original to the vehicle, and as you'll see on 0 to 60 in a little bit, it really doesn't do as well as you might expect for how it looks at the flames. But it's useful. You could park an ATV, you could tow a house down with this, you could do a whole lot of things. It even has a power outlet on the back. It even has some snack storage on the sides of the flatbed for when you're at the job site and you get a little bit hungry. And in case you were wondering, just behind the 20-inch wheels, you have an underbody light kit that the previous owner put on. So whether you're pavement princessing this around, taking it to the truck meets, or actually going on some off-road trails, you have some underbody lights, as well as a whole host of aftermarket lights added on with the auxiliary switches. You might think that this would be a really good off-roader, but weighing over 7,000 pounds and having a 20-inch wheel, there is quite a bit of sidewall. It goes up almost as high as the sidewalk. But look at the wheelbase of this, being basically a long bed. Look at the suspension components. It's really not that high off the ground. I'm not even certain that this has more ground clearance underneath the axles and the powertrain components than what my Outback Wilderness has. If you relocated the exhaust, you actually have a pretty good departure angle, and the body is really high up, so you could go through some pretty impressive water crossings. But the suspension components seriously take up about half of the ground clearance you'd otherwise have. But thankfully you do have the mysterious hatch to get to your fifth wheel trailer hitch. And it can fold out like that if you needed it to. Or if you just need a nice place to sit because you're tired after a long day's work. You can do that too on the big Ram. And you're nearly as tall as the treetops from up here. The oxygen is getting a little bit thin. I better hop down though before I pass out. I do think all the tie down points though and the auxiliary diesel tank is a really cool feature on this. But when you're this high up the ground, even hopping down, it feels like you're gonna break your ankle every single time. And thankfully, the previous owner put fender flares on that actually match the width of the wheels. Far too often you'll see these on trucks that don't actually have wider tires, and then it just looks disproportionate. And even the drive shaft from the transfer case for the front wheel drive front axle is blue, so you don't have to worry about that. And then look at that oil pan, the thing's ginormous. Whether you're towing a real trailer or a ghost trailer, you should always have your tow mirrors out as far as they go. And then when you get up in here, does this step extend out? No, it doesn't. It's mechanical, it's not electronic. But thankfully you have this big A-pillar handle so that you can climb up and sit inside of here. 4th and 5th gen Ram trucks really do have a great interior. They're comfortable, very ergonomically pleasing, and I won't jokingly knock anything in here. You even have the controller for your winch, because those are usually kept in the glove box. And then the giant door panel even has the upper tray, couple bottles, and a ginormous snack pocket. So I really do like this. The interior for 90,000 miles, I think has held up exceptionally well. There you can see your Edge programmer. It might be on a fuel tune, it might be on a performance tune. You'll find out how it does 0 to 60 soon enough. You have your 4-wheel drive switch here. You have your brake controller, your auxiliary switches, your 12-volt, and your basic climate controls, so it's pretty cool. The previous owner was even kind enough to leave their garage door remote in here, so that's pretty cool. This doesn't seem to have storage under the seats, but you do have a little bit more when the 6th seat is down, which I do think is really cool, that you can fit 6 people in a full-size Ram 3500 SLT. Even the backpack's having a good time in here. And sitting behind the driver position, I have a pretty good amount of room in front of my knees. Armrest is soft, dark tinted windows, but there you can see you even have the upper tray back here as well. No full down armrest in the center seat, but it is pretty nice back here, and these seats honestly hardly look like they've been sat in at all. But I think you guys have waited long enough to see how the behemoth drives, and then we'll do our 0 to 60, and then we'll meet back here for my final thoughts. Initial driving impressions of the Ram 3500. The turbo Cummins engine sounds really good, especially with the window down, but look how dark the tinted windows are. It really doesn't move very far though, because when you're on tires that are this big, that takes a lot of torque to rotate them, and diesels are not fast to begin with. They have extremely high torque output numbers, but that's a very limited portion of the RPM. So unless you do a lot of work, they're just not that fast. But visibility with those towing mirrors is fantastic. The rear view mirror, you can see right down the center of the cabin, but you see the bars from the rack on the back, which reminds you that if you hit someone in this behemoth truck, you're gonna be looking from behind bars for probably quite a while. But this thing's fun to drive, and it's extremely smooth with how much sidewall those big all-terrain tires have. It actually rides really well, but the interior of the cabin is pretty dark, as you'll see on camera, not only because the tinted window's not letting in a lot of light, the lack of a power moonroof or something like that, but because the interior of the Ram is dark. It's all soft touch, but materials that are going to age well, that are easy to wipe down and clean, because at the end of the day, this LT is basically just a work truck, but it's comfortable. My backpack's having a good time. The speaker system is decent, and overall, it's pretty well insulated from the elements. There's not really any tire noise when you're not on gravel, and it's not very windy out today, as noted by the trees deciding to not dance much. But overall, it's pretty cool. And if you like the sound of a diesel engine, it sounds fantastic. I will say, even though it has big towing brakes, I'm not very inspired by how well they brake. Just make sure that you get on the brake pedal early and progressively if you need to, because this is a big truck. This is a lot of tonnage to be going down the road. One more acceleration. Yeah, not very quick, but does it turn? Does it handle? I mean, we're going under 60 miles an hour, so I guess when you're this high up in the ground, which is nearly as high as the bus driver sits from the one that I just passed off camera, I guess I can't complain too much. 0 to 60, traction off, too high, let's go. And true 0 to 60 came in at 10.52 seconds. Definitely not very quick, but this is a big, heavy truck. The tuner likely only helps to come a little bit closer to bone stock levels with how big these tires are. And then density altitude is over 3,000 feet, so it is down on power a few percent. Final thoughts of the big diesel 3500 is this is one of only a few 3500 series trucks that I've driven, and it's the biggest truck I've driven, because the second largest would either be another full-size diesel or the TRX. So this one definitely feels big, although the more you drive it, the more manageable it feels. We obviously didn't run over any people or cars in the making of this film, because the front bumper is perfect. Although, had we done anything like that, I don't know that you'd be able to tell. It's a heavy-duty truck. It drives like one. It turns and corners horribly. It feels extremely heavy, but it's comfortable. All the sidewall on these Kumoho tires really cushion your ride. It looks fantastic. The exhaust is larger than a fist, and overall, it was a really cool experience. I'm honestly surprised that a Ram like this, with only 90,000 miles on the Cummins turbo diesel, only costs about $40,000. So if you want to buy it, it's at Twin Falls Subaru, and I'll link it below. If you like this video, this was definitely more of an impromptu. I just saw it and I want to experience it. and I wanted to show you guys the biggest truck I have driven up to date. So this was not one of my normal reviews. That's more planned and more objective. This was just for fun, and I'm glad that I could share it with you. Subscribe if you want to watch more. I post a couple times a week. I hope you guys take care, and I hope to see you again. See ya.